Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you're watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today we're going to be talking about a bunch of free movies you can currently catch right here on YouTube. So not only is this going to be a long list full of totally free movies you can watch right here on YouTube, the links to each movie are in the top pinned comment, not the video description, the top pinned comment. That means you can click that link and start watching these movies right away. However, the availability of these comes and goes really without warning on YouTube. A lot less warning than you get on streaming platforms. So availability is subject to change, and some of them could change quite quickly, which is why you want to have that subscribe button and the bell notification icon clicked. That way you get notified when these videos release and you can check out the movies before they're gone. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Later on in this video, I'll be telling you how a bonehead like me created DarrenVanDam.com using the Squarespace tools, but that's later. For now, let's get started all the way at the back at this list with a Sylvester Stallone movie that was then later essentially remade into a Hugh Jackman movie, Over the Top. Now in Over the Top, Stallone takes his estranged son on a cross-country trip to compete in a, wait for it, arm wrestling competition. Yes, it's a movie about an arm wrestling competition. They ended up taking the exact same storyline and adapted it to Real Steel with Hugh Jackman. An equally good movie. Over the Top just doesn't have robots fighting in it. It's got a bunch of meatheads arm wrestling in it, but it is kind of good 80s fun. Keep in mind though, I do rank my list, so Over the Top is all the way at the back. 24 by 36, a movie about movie posters, is way more interesting than you would think. If you don't know, before I started here on YouTube, I actually began this business venture, I guess you could say, or hobby, with an Instagram account where I shared a lot of interesting movie posters. This documentary is about sort of this explosion or renaissance of movie posters. I find it really interesting. However, just because you love movies does not mean you're going to find a movie about movie posters interesting. If you're the least bit interested in the designs, the process of design, I went to school for graphic design, you will find this movie beyond interesting. Frozen is free to watch on YouTube right now, and no, I don't mean the Disney Frozen, that's over on Disney Plus. Frozen, though, is about a couple of people trapped on a ski lift indefinitely. It is essentially a horror movie. It's exactly what it sounds like though. It's a slow burn, not much else other than them being stuck on the ski lift happens, but considering it's such a simple concept, this movie actually delivers. There's actually quite a good story that gets revealed. It's a small movie. You're gonna be stuck on a ski lift and it's gonna feel like you're stuck on a ski lift for about 90 minutes with some people, but if that interests you in the least, Frozen is actually a pretty decent low-budget horror flick, thriller/horror flick. Got a couple of comedies on this list, starting with the SLAMMIN Salmon, which is from the same comedy group that brought you Super Troopers. I will say Super Troopers is way better than the SLAMMIN Salmon, but if you find their sense of humor funny, the SLAMMIN Salmon is full of it. It's just not a solid movie overall. If you like the people involved though, this movie does have a bunch of laughs in it. If you were in no way, shape, or form a fan of Super Troopers, then you're gonna wanna stay far away from the SLAMMIN Salmon. For another silly comedy that's got some years on it now, Remo Williams, I think, is a really underrated comedy movie. It's very self-aware. It's an American action hero all the way. It's a spoof of like Chuck Norris type movies and stuff, and the movie has a lot of fun with it. Obviously, it's very dated, but the jokes still hold up. I think this is a really funny movie for people who were fans of 80s action movies. This one essentially is one, even though it's really kind of lame in the action department. It's got a lot of really good laughs in it, and it's just has become a cult classic over the years. So before moving on with the rest of this list, I need to tell you about today's sponsor, Squarespace, but also my new website, DarrenVanDam.com. this is what it looks like. You can go there right now or when you finish this video, but Squarespace made it super easy for me to create this beautiful website with literally zero coding. I did not put a stitch of code in it. It's drag and drop, super easy to integrate my YouTube videos, very easy to create a newsletter. In fact, when the video's over, you can go there and sign up for my free newsletter. There's still time to sign up to get my first edition, which is going to be coming out very soon, but they let me manage the emails directly in Squarespace. There's analytics so I can see how many people are coming to the site. And again, it's all incredibly user-friendly. Now, I research everything before I buy it, pretty much, and I did that with the website as well. There are a lot of competitors out there, and I landed on Squarespace because of how beautiful their sites can be and how easy the interface is to use. And right now you can go to squarespace.com and sign up for a free trial. It has nothing to do with me or this channel. They make it easy to sign up for free, but when you are ready to register for a new domain name or purchase a website, go to my URL, which is squarespace.com/flickconnection, and you'll save 10% off your first order with Squarespace. So if you've been thinking about starting a web page, creating a new one for your business or your passion, Squarespace makes it easy for anybody to create something that is beautiful, but also compatible on desktop and mobile. I mean, the site will just fluidly change, and I didn't do anything to set that up. Again, go to squarespace.com/flickconnection and you'll save 10% off, or just go directly to the site and sign up for a free trial. But that said, let's go ahead and move on with the rest of the movies on this list.
May I help you? Sir!
Faster is one of the more interesting movies The Rock did before he really became a household name. This is one of the earlier movies that he did, and it's pretty cool. It's got a cool soundtrack to it. It's a great little revenge flick. It's got some decent action in it. Billy Bob Thornton plays a good character in it as well, and it's got a good look to it. The colors pop, muscle cars. Not a great movie, but for the genre that it's in, of just like hot women, fast cars, shootouts, this one is surprisingly underrated. Believe it or not, Batman makes the list, but no, it's not really one of the good ones. It's the 1966 Adam West version. However, I will say that this movie actually is worth watching. Mainly for the campiness. Now, well, let's just be honest, exclusively for the campiness. But it's really funny, especially if you're a Batman fan. If you're maybe my age or a little younger and you never watched the 1966 version, it has way more laughs in it than you would think. I think now is a great time to watch it if you've got a little bit of Batman fever. I really do recommend watching this one as a comedy, because that is what it is, truly. And it is a lot of fun to watch all the bad guys and the 60s campiness and all of that. It's just a good fun time at the movies that I think people view incorrectly. They view it as a bad movie. And while it is that, it's also more culturally significant than just only a bad movie can be. So again, if you've got a little bit of Batman fever, this is very different from any other Batman movie, obviously, and that's kind of what makes it worth revisiting. All right, we'll switch things up a bit here with a sci-fi alien invasion movie starring none other than Charlie Sheen in The Arrival. Now, this is one that punches above its weight. It's lower budget, more or less, kind of a straight-to-video type of a thing. Some of the computer effects are going to be extremely dated at this point, but it does go in some wild directions. There's some great sequences in this. There's a whole sequence that takes place in Mexico, and I love how this story plays out. It's very much a rabbit hole type of a story, and it's got some great moments in it. If you can get past Charlie Sheen, meaning if you can see the character and not the maniac that Charlie Sheen became, then this is kind of a cool alien invasion movie, as long as you don't mind a lot of the dated visual effects. Speaking of Batman, Christian Bale makes the list with a very little known movie that he did right around the same time as Batman Begins, Rescue Dawn. Now in this, he plays a POW during Vietnam. There's some other great actors in here. This is a good movie, but obviously the themes are incredibly heavy. And the production feels a little bit weaker than you normally get with movies like this because it is a slightly lower budget movie, meaning typically these more like historically significant ones, movies about, you know, war, things like that, have a much higher production value. And Rescue Dawn, you can kind of feel some of the budget restraints a little bit, again, which is just kind of unusual for a movie about POWs, but this is not one that I just recommend to everybody. It's heavy. It's gonna put you in kind of a funky mood because it's prisoners of war, but it's a very good movie about POWs, even if it is kind of hard to watch. All right, now we got a cult classic on the list. Keep in mind, I'm just telling you some of my favorite picks, or at least lesser known picks out of things that are free on YouTube right now. And right now they have the 90s classic, Hackers. So this is one of the earliest movies Angelina Jolie was ever in, but you've also got a good role from Matthew Lillard, just as he was becoming really kind of hot in the 90s. There's some cool stuff in this movie, some fun aesthetic things that are kind of funky, the soundtrack, the bad guys kind of zany. This is one that I feel like a very slim percentage of you would turn on today and enjoy if you weren't already a fan of this movie. However, if it's been a long time since you've seen it and you used to like it, this could be a really fun trip down memory lane for you. Another nostalgic one that I think never gets enough credit is Clue the movie. Obviously everyone loves the game Clue, but Clue the movie actually has a fantastic cast and a bunch of laughs in it. It is a solid, funny movie. I think it technically qualifies as a cult classic, meaning quite a few groups recognize it as one, and there are a lot of people who consider this to be one of their favorite movies. Not a ton, but there are some of you watching. You can let me know in the comments, but that's because it is funny and it's got some great characters in it and it represents kind of the spirit of the game pretty well. Another one, if you've never seen it, there's gonna be just a slim percentage of you that turn it on, watch it for the first time and go, oh wow, this is really fantastic. But if you used to enjoy this movie, I can tell you the laughs hold up. And again, it's gonna be another trip down memory lane for you that is gonna be well worth checking out, especially considering it's totally free on YouTube right now. Now that said, we're gonna go with another cult classic that I know a lot of you probably have paid little attention to. That's Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, the movie's just called Pumping Iron, but this is the story of Arnold Schwarzenegger going for his 6th Mr. Olympia title, while Lou Ferrigno, who would later become famous, is trying to dethrone him. And what's so great about Pumping Iron is not just sort of an inside look at Arnold Schwarzenegger's world right as he's like becoming a global megastar. So this is kind of before he was in movies at all. He even talks about wanting to be in movies in it, which is just interesting to me. But you also get him working out in like the nicest gyms alongside Lou Ferrigno working out in like these dark, dirty, dungeon-looking gyms with ropes holding his weights up and stuff. It's really well done. Like the filmmakers grabbed onto a narrative and made it work as a story in Pumping Iron better than most documentaries, by like a lot. Honestly, it almost feels scripted at times. It's not, but it does such a good job at storytelling. It really stands out as a documentary. It's one of the better sort of sports documentaries ever made. And let's switch things up quite a bit with some dragons. We've got Christian Bale again. I actually recommended Reign of Fire on my last video because it's also currently included with Prime Video. But if you missed that video or you don't pay for Prime, you can watch it on YouTube right now. This movie takes place in a dystopian future where the world has been scorched by large fire-breathing dragons. Not only do you get Christian Bale, you also get Gerard Butler, and probably the most badass role Matthew McConaughey has ever done. A lot of really great ingredients in an otherwise pretty cool movie that I think just fell short of the greatness that it kind of came close to, which is why it's a little bit of a hidden gem today. But certainly in terms of spectacle, one of the wilder, greater, grander things that you can watch for free on YouTube right now. And then another one filled with a lot of fantasy elements, but it takes place way in the past, is Outlander. Now this one is more of a hidden gem. I know it's much lesser known than Reign of Fire, but in this, a man from space crash lands on Earth during the time of the Vikings, and it's kind of a fish out of water story. Like, that's interesting enough, but there is a large creature preying on these Vikings that he has to sort of help them defend against. So this movie has a lot going for it. There's some great actors working here, including John Hurt, and it is a popcorn movie. You know, there's some fantasy stuff that's a little silly, but it is good, it's wild, it gets over the top, and it's pretty epic as well, especially for a smaller, lower budget movie. This one really has some amazing moments in it. So if you want sort of big budget, over the top, spectacle stuff, I really recommend going with Reign of Fire or Outlander. Then if you still want something with a lot of production value that's got maybe just a better story and that's a little more thought-provoking, you may want to go with Edward Norton in The Illusionist. Now, this came out around the same time as Christopher Nolan's The Prestige, which takes place during a similar time period, deals with magicians, and I think is a far superior movie. However, The Illusionist is still a really good flick. There's twists and turns, there's a lot of interesting elements, you've got a great cast beyond just Edward Norton. It just got overshadowed by, again, what I think is a superior movie. Doesn't mean that The Illusionist is not well worth watching, which is why I have it placed at number 3 on this list. That said, my number 2 pick is A Most Wanted Man, which is actually one of the final movies Philip Seymour Hoffman was ever in. I believe it actually came out after his death. Not only is he great in it, but you've got a really great supporting cast, and this is sort of an international espionage thriller, but it's not really a what you would call a spy movie, even though it does depict actual, like, real world spies. So this one's very grounded, takes place in the real world, is a little bit dry as a result, but is one of the more thought-provoking and interesting movies on this list. If you like that genre, this one, again, it's a little slow-paced, but it's fantastic because you've got great performances, solid production design, and a really solid story that gets really well delivered. And if you're a fan of Philip Seymour Hoffman's, or you ever were, it's great to see one of his final performances as well. Now we're at my number 1 pick, but I'm actually going to also tell you about a couple of the best movies. I'm just trying here to tell you about some of the lesser known movies, but there's also some really well-known movies that are also free on YouTube right now. Again, that's going to change, but my number 1 pick on this list is Hero, starring Jet Li. Now, this is a little bit more well-known because Quentin Tarantino actually released this in theaters under his name. He produced, I guess, the release of it in America. But that said, you get a fantastic story. I would compare Hero a lot to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which I know Americans just went nuts for some reason. I think Hero is the superior movie. It is a really fantastic story that is told in a pretty interesting way. They use different colors and different chapters. There's some fantastic fight sequences that are fanciful, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. However, I feel like the story is much better and moves much better than Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Even if that's like somehow a superior film, Hero's more entertaining and more concise in a lot of ways, and it's filled with some amazing moments. Visually, just some of the most amazing moments you're gonna see for free on YouTube right now, with the exception of some of my other top picks like There Will Be Blood. That's free on YouTube right now, if you can believe that. It's one of my all-time favorites. Didn't see any point in mentioning it because it's such a popular movie, but it's free on YouTube right now if it's been a while since you've seen it. They also have Ronin, which I have talked about on this channel enough. I didn't want to include it in the list, but not only do I love the movie, I absolutely love the car chases in Ronin. They're some of the best ever put to film. I know some of you are probably tired of me talking about those. And then they have The Island, which is one of my favorite Michael Bay movies. I don't love everything Michael Bay does, but I also don't hate on all of it the way some people do. And while The Island is sort of a PG-13 crowd pleaser popcorn movie, it ain't a bad thing. And in terms of that, it's a really fantastic one. There's some interesting elements to it. So if you never saw that one, it's a cool sort of wild action movie, even if it is PG-13 and, you know, Michael Bay-y. It's one of the cooler, more interesting things I think he's done. So those are my picks. If you have any additional recommendations, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Who knows, one of your recommendations might make it onto a future video. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring another video and for helping me create such such a beautiful site. Don't forget to go over to darrenvandam.com and sign up for my free newsletter. There is still time to sign up and get the first edition, which is going to be coming out very, very soon. Again, just go to darrenvandam.com, scroll down to the bottom, you can sign up. There's even movie recommendations right there on the homepage, but I will keep making these videos as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this YouTube episode, and you will see me on the next one.